Hey everybody, I'm Brian.
Hello, everybody. This is Joe G.
Hey, I'm Shannon.
Hi, I'm Ron.
Hey, this is Steve.
Oh, and we can't forget about Marcel.
Oh, hey.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of Back on Track with the Trackside team. Actually, I said that backwards. Welcome back to Trackside episode 17 with the Back on Track team.
Good morning.
Okay, now Brian said he'll be joining us a little bit later on. I think he's still doing a couple of things. On that note, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the program for the week of everyone who has a live stream or whatnot that goes on during the week. So make sure you look at that. And apart from that, today we have Alison Kelly joining us today as a guest tonight. Some of you guys might have seen her last couple of episodes, in our Shindig Jack chats and our coffee, our trackside bean, as we're now calling it. So today's episode, as I said, we've got Ali here. She's going to talk to us a little bit about S scale, which a lot of people don't really model, so it's a bit of a rarity of the scale as such. But also she'll touch base in regards to Australian models as well, as she's an Australian modeler. So yeah, take it away. If you have any questions, let us know. Sparky will put them through to me, and I'll ask Ali in return, so to speak.
Cool. Thanks for that intro, Shannon. So everyone has seen me over the last couple of episodes, and I've been rewatching some old episodes and keeping up with other people's live streams and video over the last week or so, trying to get myself up to date with everything. I thought I'd just give myself a quick little introduction, a little bit of background about how I arrived with the S scale. And as you were previously aware, that a lot of people model what they've seen or what they've been around or exposed to in their life. And growing up here in Perth, Western Australia, this is basically what I grew up with. These locos used to haul the suburban passenger trains right up until the early 90s, when they were all withdrawn and the new electric trains were introduced. But rewinding a bit, so I've been in and out of the hobby pretty much all my life. I've had train sets when I was a kid, and I didn't really start modelling Australian stuff until I bought my first Australian loco when I started working in Perth Hobby Centre back in 2007. And that's when I also got introduced to DCC. And it sort of grew from there. I bought my first Australian loco that I bought was a Broadway Limited AC6000, and that was one of their Paragon 1 locos, back when they were still using QSI decoders. And I've still got that loco, plus a couple of others. I ended up with 5 at one stage, but I had to cull them back a bit. And 3 years after that, I left the hobby shop and I joined the Defence Force, and I moved over east and joined a few different clubs. I was in the club at Wagga Wagga, met a couple of other people in the military that were also into model railways, and I started buying up pretty big. I bought a whole heap of Oz Trains, HO, and then Ozvision later on. I've got a large collection of Ozvision stuff there. And yeah, it was sort of when I came back to Western Australia in, when is it now, 2017, that I started getting into more Western Australian specific stuff. So my general rule was I was modelling anything that ran in WA. And but I wanted something that I could run on the narrow gauge. And whilst it's big over east, HON 3.5 isn't quite that big over here. I know probably one or two other modelers that are into it over here. So it's quite a niche market. However, SN 3.5, they've been modelling that since the 1980s. And yeah, so in front of me here, we've got an S-scale locomotive and S-scale SN 3.5 narrow gauge, or 3 feet 6, which is what most of WA is easily represented in the S-scale 1 to 64th, HO mechanisms and HO track. So we can get away with using proprietary HO mechanisms, removing the bodies or modifying the bodies and putting on the bodies that we want to represent what we model. This particular loco, however, has a completely scratch-built mechanism. It's got a mechanism from North Yard in New Zealand, because S-scale is quite big over there as well. We're the biggest S-scale group over here in, I'm not sure Australia, but definitely in WA. There's about 40 or 50 of us, and probably 30 of us that attend regular meetings. So it is quite a popular scale for Australia anyway. I'm guessing in America it's that's not a big number of people. But we have our own magazine.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you there, Ali. Just looking through the chat, there is a couple of questions that are coming through. Sparky asks, when it comes to model trains in Australia, what is the most popular, as in easy to buy? So American versus British versus Australian. And also I've got Wilma from Indian Head Valley Railroad asking, what is the road name of the loco that you're currently displaying as well?
Okay, to answer Wilma's question just quickly, this is a West Rail locomotive. So the West Australian Government Railways became West Rail in 1975, and slowly through the late 70s, early 80s, they repainted their locos from the green and red scheme into this attractive orange and blue scheme. And that lasted right up until the early 2000s when West Rail was sold, or the business part of it was sold, because it was government run, into private ownership. And Genesee, Wyoming from America, they were in a consortium with West Farmers and things like that, created Australian Railroad Group. So that's the period this locomotive would have been operating in. What was the other question? It was from Sparky, wasn't it? Yeah,
I just want to know what's easy to acquire here in Australia. American versus British versus Australian equipment in the model railroads. Question there, Sparky. In WA, it's actually more popular to be modelling probably British. So Hornby 00, Barkman 00, that sort of stuff. Little bit of EM gauge stuff over here, and there's still quite a fair amount of American stuff. There's an American model railway group just north of the city. I forgot what they're called now, Northern Modelers or something like that. And yeah, that HO ready to run stuff is actually quite popular here in Western Australia. But over east, it's Australian modelling in HO is actually a little bit more available and a little bit more easy to get your hands on. And plus, their prototypes, like New South Wales Government Railways steam locomotives, are more available than anything that's Western Australian. Probably the most readily available West Australian locomotive that you can get is the Southern Rail Models L-Class, and the L-Class is also made by Haskell of Taiwan as well. So HO00 is probably the more popular scales. S-scale not as popular as those, but
they're more readily available if you go down to your local hobby shop and get your hands on them.
Yeah, and I can attest for that as well. Like most of the exhibitions I go to over here in the east, basically I might see one or two British layouts, one or two American layouts. Otherwise, every other layout is either some form of N scale or HO scale Australian, whether it be modelled of. A lot of it's mainly Victorian, but you also get a lot of New South Wales as well. So it's a bit of a 50-50 depending on which exhibition you go to that you usually see in regards to the Australian side of modelling.
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Actually, I got a question, and it kind of ties in with what Sparky's putting out. I know space is really limited for people over there. They're generally in, small houses or apartments or such. And Sparky's about, do you guys have basements or, attics or, where do you guys, if you got a tight space, do you generally go to clubs or just build small layouts and in tight spaces?
A lot of people actually, they stick to small layouts if they've got not much space, dioramas, that sort of thing. But for those who do have the space, generally it's a garage or a shed or a separate shed or something that they'll set up in if they've got the room on their property to do it. Or alternatively, some people have their spare rooms set up for their.
I can attest to that.
There you go. That's one of them. One of the other SCAR models that I know over here, one of his spare rooms is set up with his model railway. His permanent one. He's also got a couple of exhibition layouts that he stores in there as well. And I think he's doing.
So are basements very common there? I mean, do you guys have basements?
I'm yet to even experience a basement that's not a car park.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm living in a small unit, so I don't even have a layout. And like you suggested before, Steve, I tend to use the local club because my local club's only 5 minutes down the road.
Okay.
I can go down there Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and our meetings are Monday evenings, so Monday evenings and Friday evenings. So I can be down there pretty much every day of the week, almost, whenever I want to run a train.
Right. Do you find that you're kind of a loner, being a gal in the model railroading community, or is that pretty common? I find that interesting.
No, but I get along fairly well with the males. I mean, I've always worked in a lot of male-dominated industries, so it's not that hard to get along with them. You just got to tune out sometimes. With some of the you always think of people that like trains as being guys, so I think it's cool. A lady would find it interesting. I just find that really nice.
Yeah, the only issue, there's only one issue I'll find with that is if it does end up in divorce, she'll take half your trains.
I'm yet to find a partner who's actually shared interest in my trains, even though that's quite a significant portion of my household value is my trains. So
yeah,
but I've never been in that situation.
Are there a lot of clubs around you?
In Western Australia, there's one in Fremantle, one at the museum in Bassendean, and of course also my local one, which is in Bayswater, and there's the Northern Suburbs one, and I think there's one in Rockingham as well. I'm not sure. But when I was over east, there was a lot more clubs around, and there was even in Newcastle, within probably 2 or 3 kilometres of each other, there were 3 different clubs, and none of them talked to each other. We're from the same club, and they split after a falling out, and so yeah, sometimes that happens as well.
Yeah, I find there's a lot of politics over here, isn't there, in regards to one
yeah.
club versus the next, and then one club says something about another club's exhibition, and then all of a sudden they just go, "Nah, not talking to you anymore." To put it politely, anyway.
Yeah, there is a lot of politics, and sometimes a lot of that can come down to that, like club fees and stuff like that. Our latest one over at AMRA WA, we actually had to leave the AMRA Australia Model Railway Association umbrella because we weren't getting the support that the other AMRA branches were getting, and all our fees were going over there, but we were getting nothing in return bar a magazine. So we've separated now, and all our club fees now go back into the club, so we're a little bit more financially stable. And sometimes it's politics like that, this stuff, that can cause those kind of rifts.
I've got another question from Steve 87th PSAP. Hello there, Steve. Since you're talking about space, can you rent any warehouse space?
Oh yeah, sure. That's never an issue. But again, you've got to have this. And for the average worker, that's quite a fair bit to lay down.
I can imagine for a club it'd be a lot easier to rent a warehouse space, but an individual, it'd be a bit harder, I reckon.
Yeah. Our club rooms are actually owned by the council, and so we rent. We've got a 100-year lease or something like that from the council, but the individual layouts are owned by the club itself. So no matter where we go, the layouts will come with us.
Yeah.
Question coming in from Sparky. Ali, I think it's great that you like trains more than I do. Which you have for dating Canadian or American?
Sparky, trust you to start something like that.
I come close to American stuff, let's put it that way, because like I said, one of my first Australian locos was actually technically an American loco, the Broadway Limited AC6000. So I can technically bend the rules there a little bit because they do run in Western Australia, up in the north of our state. BHP Bouldin, who hold the record for the longest train in the world.
I was looking for that the other day. I didn't realise it was the longest train in the world. I thought it was the longest train in Australia.
No, the longest. It has the Guinness World Record for the longest train in the world. It was something like fourth.
How long was it?
I don't know. It was something like 3 or 4 kilometres long. It had 8 locomotives. They were all AC6000s, which they've since retired. All the AC6000s, but they were the only 6,000 horsepower locomotives in Australia. And
now,
pretty much ever. Yeah.
I would have to ask you what were, and this is the engineer in me. Okay, you got 8 locomotives, longest trains in the world. Was it okay? First question was, were they all on the head end? Second question was it level? Did they use DPUs? Were they mid-trained? Were they pushed?
They were 222. 111 or something like that. So they were in DPU, something like a couple of hundred cars between each. And no, it wasn't a level grade because they got to go through, I think it's the Chichester Ranges, which is one of the big ranges up there in the north of Western Australia. I've never actually been up there myself, but it's from all the photos I've seen and what I've read. I do a lot of reading on Australian railways, and at the moment, I'm doing a lot of reading on European and American railways.
Well, that was a technical question for me because DPUs have changed the game in railroading. I didn't get to use them when I was running. They had what they called RCE, remote control equipment, but it was spotty, reliable at best, and they used it in spaces. But the DPU has changed things because now you can run longer trains. when you got them all on the head end, you're limited to length because of the length of the brake pipe, and it starts to get the train gets so long that the brakes start not wanting to work anything more than 150. I think 200 cars. The brakes on the rear are not wanting to do it because everything is.
You've got that weight on the drawbar as well. You can imagine
exactly, yeah.
Wagons towards the front would be starting to get a little bit, stretched.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and the knuckles they're designed to brake at 280,000 pounds.
Which happened on the record-breaking train. They actually did have to fix it well. But they had to take kilometers.
With the DPU, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Just
the DPUs came out, they could put the power on the rear end, and they're very reliable. And what it does is it puts the compressors for the brake system on the back end as well, so everything's working in unison, and they can run these longer trains. And if you put them, mid-train helpers in there, it gets to the point now where the railroads are taking advantage of that. It's called PSR, and I'm not going to get into railroad politics, but it's precision scheduled railroading. And what they're doing now is, since it's gotten so reliable about train lengths, and with DPUs, they're running 15,000-foot trains with two guys on the head end. They wanted to go to one, but I don't think that's going to happen. And it comes down to public safety when you're running a train at that length and blocking crossings. So in Australia, you're talking about huge trains, and that's a good thing. But here in the States, they're pushing the limits way past where they need to be.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but in regards to what Ali was saying in regards to holding the world record, I've just had a quick Google of it. So the train were Pilbara region, was an iron ore train, 4.5 miles long.
Yeah, I thought it was about that.
Yeah, not kilometers, 4.5 miles.
I knew there was a 4 in there.
That's 24,000 feet.
I'm just gonna read this a little bit further. I wonder if it actually says how much iron ore that was. 41 million tons of iron ore per year. It was a 10-hour. Oh, here we go. It was a 10-hour journey with 682 loaded cars. It took 6 minutes for the train to pass a railroad crossing. The overall tonnage was 99,732 metric tons at a speed of 45 miles per hour.
Right. Well, and see that's fine in that environment, but going back to the PSR, these 15,000-foot trains that are wonderful modern railroads are trying to do. You got a 3-mile train, but let's say it's moving at 5 miles an hour. A 3-mile train, how long is it going to block that crossing? And if you've got, first responders trying to get to a house fire, somebody getting to a hospital, people are going to die. I mean, bottom line is the trains are getting too long over here, and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, but in saying that, Steve, like the advantage we have over here in Australia is the fact that, the region that iron ore train was at, it's pretty much in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Like you're talking a place where a town might have a population of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah. No,
there's a lot of people up there at the moment, if you're not counting the FIFO workers. But yeah, it's a long distance between some of these railway crossings, and a lot of them, they don't even have crossings anymore. They've put overpasses over for that reason. They're obviously not running trains that length anymore,
right.
But they still run DPU trains. The last one I saw had 4 SD70 ACEs, in the consist. So they still do DPU trains. They were doing DPU trains out of Cooley-Nobbing for a while, but they were only about, I think they were only 1,800 metres long. So they were short trains. But and they did have DPU as well, but that was only 4 engines, so 2 at the front and 2 in the middle.
Well, it's funny. I remember they always claimed that the big boys could pull a 5-mile long train on level track. That would be a good test for the UP to try to do. Now that we have one.
They have a big boy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I bought my GTEL 8500, reading up some history on it, and supposedly that train during testing, they snapped a lot of couplers just for the fact that it just exceeded the weight limit on the coupler.
It gets to the point where they're just going to fail because they're only going to. And if you get, they'll pull, really far. But if you get a little bit of slack and then pull again, those knuckles will snap. They're designed to break.
Yeah, it's like a lucker band. Like you can pull a lucker band slowly till it's at its maximum reach. But if you just release that lucker band and then just stretch it out quickly, it just goes doing.
Well, anybody that's used silly putty, I don't know if you know what that is, but in the States, it's a gooey thing the kids use. They still have it, I think. And you can stretch that stuff. I mean, it just stretches. But if you get it out and you pull it, it snaps. And it's kind of the same.
Over here as well. A lot of kids actually watch YouTube videos on how to make the stuff. One of my ex's kids was rocking that stuff, and it's messy.
It's my understanding, and I somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember hearing a while back, silly putty was something that somebody was trying to develop a rubber product or something, and they ended up with silly putty. It wasn't what they wanted, but it's what they got. And they ended up marketing it as silly putty. So.
A lot of great things come from accidents.
Accidents, yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking at the time. It's about that time we run the intermission now. I know we had an intermission video that Brian made last week, which for the minute I'm going to hold that back for the moment.
You probably should put that one away.
Yeah. So I'll put that for a rainy day, so to speak. But in the meantime, I do have a couple of videos that Ali has sent through, so I'm just going to try and play them.
The quality was very light. They were iPhone videos.
When I played on my computer, they looked alright, so we'll see how we go. And then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more, about S-scale, Australian modelling, and go from there. So just bear with me 2 seconds whilst I sort this out, because I haven't actually set it up properly yet, but it shouldn't take me too long.
Well, you can always show both of them.
Yeah. So let's bugger that up. Add source.
We'll run trains. We'll run trains.
Actually, it was interesting. I'm just looking at the chat here talking about overpasses and things like that. In Esperance, they needed to make the yard longer for these longer ore trains, because that's where they were being shipped out of from Cooley-Nobbing. They went from Cooley-Nobbing down to Esperance rather than Kwinana. And to make the yard longer, they had a problem where a main road crossed halfway down the yard. So they ended up making an overpass that goes over the middle of this rail yard. So you can go over this overpass and look down both sides of this overpass and see long ore trains just ore wagon after ore wagon.
All right.
It was,
cool. Okay, I've just got the videos loaded up, so I'll play them. We're only going to be off the camera for a couple of minutes, so Yep, just bear with me, but yeah, enjoy the videos and keep those questions coming. Okay, those videos were a lot shorter than I expected.
Those are cool, Ali.
All right.
Those are cool.
Okay.
So that's some of the HO Australian stuff in there as well. But that layout that's in there is actually an S-scale layout. So the trees and the buildings are actually a little bit out of scale for some of that HO stuff. But it didn't look too bad going through that area. So
yeah, no, it looked all right. Now, I know you've answered this question already, but Vinny from BNSF 6951 just wants to quickly ask, why did you go with S-scale?
So S-scale was the only way that I could achieve what I wanted to model realistically, because otherwise there'd be a lot more scratch building involved. Thankfully, the S-scale group that I joined had a lot of already established kits available, such as this one here. This is a QCF flat wagon, and a lot of them, they're just basically castings. And then you go ahead and you purchase all the other bits and pieces like vacuum hoses and the bogies and things like that that you've got to assemble yourself. So all that stuff was available rather than me having to, if I was in HON 3.5, I don't even think it'd be available mechanism thinking about it. Even today, to scratch build or even build onto West Australian locomotives. So S-scale was the only way I could achieve that.
Yeah. Now, Leslie was just asking just then, what is the track gauge that you model with? Which I can answer, which is, it just runs on HO scale track. Leslie?
5mm gauge.
Yep. What else? Sparky at the start.
What we tend to do is we use micro-engineering ON30 track, and we just chop the ends off the sleepers a little bit. And the spacing for that looks a little bit more realistic for S-scale. I'm using dual gauge.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm fairly new to this. So that's why I've been sort of hijacking your channel for a little bit.
Hey, no problems there. We all love looking at trains. Now, I'm not sure how well everyone can see this on the streaming screen, but actually no, Leslie can see it, so he knows exactly what it is. But I know a lot of the American guys won't have a clue. Do you want to just quickly explain what you actually have on the track right in front of you right now, and entice these Americans and so to speak?
Sure, not a problem. So in Australia, we have this articulated locomotive we call a Garrett. So instead of going with the French Mallet design, we went with the British Garrett design. So the Garrett was a British invention, the very first Garrett locomotive was actually an Australian Garrett locomotive, K1, and that served in Tasmania on one of the wood lines in that state. This is one of probably the biggest, if not the biggest, Garrett locomotive of its design in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a 484 plus 484. So it's probably similarly sized to the South African GMAMs, which were a 482-284. This is a New South Wales AB60 Garrett. So it's a 60 class Garrett, number 6020, and it's when they came out with a short bunker, and they later extended that bunker to get a heavier coal load and a little bit more distance out of them.
So
they were.
You said it was a 484.
Yes. So
Yeah,
you've got
that's basically a big boy in the U.S.
Yeah, it's got a couple more wheels than the big boy, but
yeah,
it's not counting the tender on the big boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, holy man, that must be huge.
Well, realistically, I'd say it's more like an FEF-3 back to back.
It's
because the FEF, the FEF-3 is a 484.
But the wheel would be a lot smaller.
Shannon, can you make Alison's screen bigger?
Yeah, I just did that. I kind of just screen captured her screen and just overlaid it over the top of our screen already.
Okay, there we go.
So, like, we're no longer in the screen anymore. Alison's just taking it all up.
Okay, that's cool.
I'm doing the show again. So yeah, just to show everybody that there is HO Australian available. This is a ready-to-run, sound-equipped locomotive from Eureka Models, and they actually do a lot of Australian steam locomotives. They do the classic 3801, which is a Pacific locomotive, it actually had the highest boiler pressure in Australia. So that's its claim to fame. It also travelled across Australia, and it came all the way across here to WA twice, I think, 1988 and in the 1970s. So once for the bicentennial, which was the year I was born, and once as another trip across just the Western Endeavour, they call that one. Just to.
I've got a question when you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the Garretts, and I've seen the Garretts before. You're running basically, the same amount of power of a big boy, but the boiler is nowhere near the size. Did they have a problem with getting enough steam to run basically 2 484s? I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
It's actually got one of the larger boilers that you'll see on any Australian locomotive. It's obviously not as big as a big boy. Again, the wheels and the pistons and all that sort of stuff, all that motion gear is not as actually large as a big boy. So it doesn't need as much steam to get it going. These were still quite powerful locomotives, and the reason for the design of the Garrett was it spreads out the load and the weight of the locomotive. So this locomotive could go on a lot of lightly laid branch lines and still have the power of 2 locomotives.
I see.
So that's the idea behind the Garrett.
That's actually a really brilliant design.
Yeah. So as opposed to like a big boy where you're restricted to heavy laid lines and stuff like that because of that weight, you had the weight spread out over the locomotive. Unfortunately, you have issues like the triplex did, where you start getting less water in here, a lot less coal. It lightens the load on the wheels, and you start to lose a little bit of traction. But
you're unbalanced. Yeah.
But that never seemed to be much of an issue for these Garretts. They're quite a heavy locomotive.
Now, just
how long have you been modeling S-scale, Les?
I've been modelling S-scale. God, I think I started modelling S-scale when I was still in the hobby shop, so that'd be close to 15 years ago. So, yeah, I've been modelling for quite some time. I was in and out of it because I joined the military, and so I was travelling all over Australia, and so that's why I got into the HO stuff a little bit heavily during that period, because it was easier and I didn't have to do much. I could just take my locos to someone layout or the club layout and that. As opposed to the S-scale stuff, now that I've left the military, I've got a little bit more time, and so I don't actually have that issue of moving around everywhere, so nothing can easily get damaged either.
Yeah.
And I'm closer to Western Australia now. I'm actually back in Western Australia, so I can actually be more associated with other modelers and of this scale.
Okay, just looking through the chat, there's a couple more questions. Leslie Gilpin was just asking, do any of the Garretts still exist? Or
depends on what type of Garrett you're looking for.
I know there's one in New South, which I think's the 8060 class, like what you've got right there in front of you. Or yep.
Yeah, so there's actually 4 8060s still in New South Wales. 2 up at Dorrigo, which is pretty much out in the open and rusting. 6029, which recently got restored back to running order and does trips around New South Wales, and 6040, which is at the Rail Transport Museum at Thirlmere in New South Wales.
Yep, and I know down here in Victoria, there's another Garrett on a narrow track branch line on Puff and Billy, as we call it here in Victoria. I can't remember the model of the Garrett, but I just call it Puff and Billy Garrett. That's all I call it.
It's,
interrupt. I got a question from Container Man, Roy Hardwick. And actually, that's a good question. I was thinking the same thing. Is where is the bunker arrangement? You know, water versus coal, front, back.
For the Garrett.
In a Garrett group, mostly they've got the water in the front here because that's just purely water in there. Whereas in the bunker here, you've got the combination of the coal and water. These were they were automatically fed, so there was none of this having the shovel, because it's just for the size of this firebox and the size of the amount of coal that would have been needed to heat the tubes. There's no way of finding keep up with that. So they had what
pretty much similar to what they did with the big boring challenges, where they just had an automatic feed.
Yeah.
In the Australian standard Garretts, narrow gauge 3-foot 6-inch Garretts, they some of them were converted to oil.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was going to ask, were they all coal-fired, or did they convert them to coal or to oil for convenience? So
it came down to what was available at the time. There was a coal shortage. I think it was in the 50s. So that's when oil burners started to appear fairly regularly. And then, of course, when oil prices went up, they went back to coal until the end of the thing.
Well, yeah, and see, the cow forwards in the United States, they never would have existed had they not been oil fired. You can't coal fire a cow forward. So,
yeah, that'd be a bit of a stretch, I think.
I think so. That poor fireman running up with a bucket of coal, you know. Yeah.
Hi, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see y'all. How is everyone?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm late.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. I was gonna say, Brian, now that you're on, do you have any questions for Ali regarding S-scale, Australian trains, or anything like that? Obviously, I had the obvious, like, what is S-scale, how long she's been modelling, availability, and stuff like that.
Y'all covered that already?
Yeah.
Well, give me a minute to think on that. I was going to say I do like everybody's new camera angle. Steve's camera angle looks awesome.
Well, that
And,
was your suggestion.
that's why I think it looks awesome, I guess.
Yeah, I've moved location. I was over there on the dining room table, and now I've moved into the lounge room, which is only 6 feet away.
Brian, I've got 65 trees done, and I've got a few more in the bullpen. This is getting crazy.
It's absolutely amazing how many trees you can do and still how many you need to do.
Well, I'm going to end up filling this place up with trees.
Yeah, but they look good and they will.
Okay.
Well, I guess my question for Allie would be, do you have plans in the future to obviously build your own layout? And if you do, if you have those plans, would that still be S-scale? And tell us about what you would do when you build your own layout. Give us an idea of what's ahead when you do that.
Sure, Brian. I've actually got a few plans up here. Yeah, they're pretty much all up here at the moment because I don't actually have the space to build my own layout currently at this stage. But in the future, there are 2 plans that I'm currently playing around with. One is a practice diorama, if you will, which would be just this a base grain siding somewhere on the Great Southern Railway, which is the main line from Avonard in Northam down to Albany, so in Western Australia. It'll be somewhere along there, just a grain siding and a passing loop sort of thing. And that will definitely be S-scale. And the beauty about modelling S-scale is I can still run my HO stuff on the S-scale layout and not have any clearance issues. And I'll typically keep my HO stuff for running on other people's layouts and things like that as well. Sorry, Steve.
No, I just got a question in from Sparky from Shane's Trains for you. What are the major differences between Australian rail industries versus American railroad industries? I can't even talk.
You'll find one of the biggest differences is the number of units produced. So you're looking at, say, for example, an AC 6000, something like that, American AC 6000. You're producing thousands, maybe 2,000 of that particular road number. In Australia, looking at 200 units, just 200. And even then, some of the less popular road numbers don't sell that quickly. So there are a lot less of us, and that's why some of our models tend to be a lot more expensive in comparison to a similarly designed and produced American locomotive. I mean, a lot of them are made in the same factories in China. So they're the same quality, same running, same everything, same paint quality, just tend to be a little bit more expensive because there's less of them. That's one of the big differences. That's why a lot of people over here as well do tend to go towards American or British models because you get a starter set in double O scale, $200. That's track, locomotive, carriages, transformer. This locomotive here would cost you about $300.
So those got
lean one way or the other.
just for you guys over in America wondering what that is in USD. Currently, at the current exchange prices, 300 is about 190 US. Just for that loco, and that's DC only, isn't it? When you buy it.
One's actually a standard quick locomotive, so it's another $100 on top of that.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Now, in saying that, I did see a question. I guess it's a question from Roy, Container Man 68. He's questioning double-ended cab loco. So I think.
Yeah, the reasoning behind that is so you don't have to turn it around. Simple as that. You can these locomotives tend to run in 3s and 4s in New South Wales on coal trains mostly, but they start now returning to intermodal trains. This particular locomotive actually came over to West Australia to do some shunting at Esperance, but because of the tank clearance, it had to be sent back. But yeah, it's a clever design, so you don't have to turn the locomotive. But in saying that, I have seen these locomotives turn because there's been a fault in one of the cabs and they can't drive it from that cab.
Right. Yeah.
As simple as the microwave doesn't work.
I've got a bit of a statement from Shane's Trains. He's asking how do you
do a front end Friday for a locomotive like that? Yeah.
What did it say?
how do you do a front end?
I interrupted Shannon.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
he's asking how do you take a front end Friday picture with that loco if it's got 2 front ends?
Front end Friday. That's a new term to me.
It's going around on the Facebook pages. A lot of people do front end Fridays, trackside Tuesdays, side rod Saturdays, or is it side rod Sundays? Which is obviously related to steam engines.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to be really technical, when I was showing one of these to my ex's kids, and they asked the same question. They said, "Which end is the front?" I said, "It goes forward in both directions." Think about that.
Yeah, that hurts my head right now.
Number 1 end to the number 2 ends. This is the number 1 end because the radiators go at the back. So it's like your typical D&D locomotive. You still got your radiators, still got your exhaust, still got your engines, still got the dynamics. So it's still set up like a normal locomotive. You just got this extra cab at the back.
Yeah. Okay, we're running a bit short for time. We've got about 5 minutes left of the show. Is there any last minute questions anyone's got or anything like that? Or Steve, Brian, do you guys got any questions?
No, I think I've had mine answered, but I know that while you're coming up with questions, I want to thank everybody in chat. And if you guys want to go ahead and promote your channels and throw numbers out. And Allie, you need to start a YouTube channel. Actually, I've seen a couple of people.
Oh, for sure. I mean, immediately.
Yes.
Just like do videos taking your inventory and all that stuff. You can do a video answering that question about your plans for the layout. There's all kind of stuff you can do videos on just because you don't have a layout yet.
Hey, do it down at the club, Allison. Do it down at your club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once this showstopper is over and done with, maybe I could do that.
You get about 120, 30 friends pretty quick. And then they'll just accumulate from that. But you'll really seriously get about 120 friends real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And as the credits are rolling, if we have time, I'd like to hear more about that line you were talking about and the scenery opportunities you might have on it, maybe as we're saying goodbye if there's time.
The rail line that I was mentioning?
Yeah, the yearly or future layout. We're talking. Yeah. What kind of scenery opportunities are between there? What would you be doing in there?
Well, it's fairly flat scenery out there. It's actually, there's a lot of grain fields out there, so it's a fairly heavily grain traffic line, and so there's a lot of silos, which would be an interesting thing to model because the Australian ones are significantly different to the American ones. A lot of gum trees. I love gum trees. They're just fantastic looking trees. So there'd be a lot of that. But I'd really like to model a paddock of canola or wheat or something like that. And I think that would be very interesting to have on a layout. You don't see that very often on some layouts.
Yeah, I've only ever seen one layout of a narrow gauge sugarcane layout. And yeah, it was very interesting because what the guy did for sugarcane was just basically the bristles of a toilet brush.
Yeah, so I think it would be interesting to model something like that, and maybe have a header in the paddock doing some harvesting or something like that.
Now, in saying that, before we do run out of time, what do you have there in front of you? Because I've seen a lot of people going, "That looks American" and stuff like that. To me, it looks like an SD70, but I can clearly see the Australian logo right on the front of it.
Yeah, you would recognise this. It's actually an XUP SD90 MAC-H Phase 2. That's a mouthful. That popped out then recently with tsunamis down, so that's why I was asking Shannon earlier about tsunami. So there you go. And FMG bought 4 of these, and when they came to Australia, they were 6,000 horsepower, but they removed the motors from them, overhauled them significantly, and they're actually now got, I don't know what the motor's in them now, but they're only 4,300 horsepower now. So they're very much more like an SD70 now, but they're SD90 MAC-H's. And Fortescue Metals Group is the company that bought them over.
Hey, Shannon, before we leave, we want to let everybody know that we've got some crazy idea. I don't know if it's going to be regular, but we've done it twice, and it seems like it's a lot of fun. Brackside beans. I don't think it's going to be regular. We've done it kind of improv like this. We kind of get together and chat and yes. And have a good time. I think, what was it, the last one? What was it, 3.5 hours? You said,
Something like that. Yeah, but I was also, well, I reckon it's a lot of fun. Like, I wouldn't mind doing it if I can make it.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, with everybody's got time off. I mean, once you're the one that's got to stay up all night when we do it. So I don't know when or if we'll do it again, but it's something will be.
Well, in saying that, worst case scenario, there's nothing stopping me from running like TeamViewer or something, and you guys just hijack my computer from across the pond.
Okay.
And then that way you can pretty much run the show from your end, and then when I just go, see you, good night guys or whatever, and then you could just go, all right, streams, I'll end the stream now, end stream.
There you go.
So
that was a long morning.
Oh, it was. Mind you, I don't know how Real Wicked Canadian does it. I mean, his show last night, which was my morning, was like 7 hours.
Oh, I know. They go forever.
I know. And to think I was going to jump on that stream and say hello to everyone in person, and they're like, "Oh, no, I got the kids. I got to run."
Well, you don't have to stay on for 7 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but still, it's like credit to that man. Credit to that man for staying on stream for that long. But in saying that, like apart from that, like as Steve said, we've got trackside beans that we're maybe thinking of doing. No one's heard anything from Joe G in regards to the travelling boxcar, I'm guessing.
I tried actually logging on to the web form that you've got set up there, and it came up with it's been removed or taken down or something. So, all right,
well, might have to talk to not Sparky, Simon Saucy about that, because he set that up. Hang on a second, what's going on here?
Steve, those waves look good.
Oh, you like that? I get seasick sitting here. It's like, oh my god, they're dead. Well, they're almost dead flat. I was doing this, and I finally, I liked them, and then I tweak them and mess them up, and have to start again.
Oh, yeah.
And I was talking with Joe when I was doing it. Joe G, because that's Jerosi Beach over here. I finally shellacked over the top of it because I was going to totally screw it up. It was like I keep trying to fix stuff, and it's like I just covered it with shellac so I didn't mess it up anymore.
Yeah,
yeah, it's not what I was expecting, but it works.
Yeah. All right, guys. I guess it's time for us to say goodbye. Thanks again, guys, for joining us, and thank you, Alison, for giving us an insight on S-Scale and Australian models.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And please come back anytime you want, Allie. You got a key to the room, so you
Excellent.
Come back anytime.
Yeah, it's always good fun having you on here. Now, yeah, as I said, there's a travelling boxcar that, if none of us have heard anything from JJ, I'm guessing, looks like I'll be shipping something over to Steve to try and get this started, because I really want to get this started.
Yeah, we can get something for that, and we'll reach out to him or get something for that. We'll give him an update next week on all that.
Yeah. Apart from that, I still have that loco, which is buried somewhere over there on that dining room table. I haven't had a chance to grab it out of the pile of mess I've made. So that's...
Still need 50.
Yeah, we still need 50 people to join us in chat. But yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is if nothing happens within the next couple of weeks, I might put it aside for a different giveaway, which might be a bit more enticing for some people. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Steve. Thanks Brian for joining us. And yeah,
I'll have a great week. Stay healthy. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody stay safe.
Yep. And apart from that, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to press that bell icon so you can get future notifications on our live streams. Again, as Steve said, we'll try and get this trackside bean thing going along, and just talk about whatever. But yeah, otherwise, till then, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for coming.
Bye.
Later, guys.